welcome to the Utah Puck Report. It's your host, Jay Stevens. So glad to be here, your friend in hockey. And we can't be doing this. It wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for Larry H. Miller Toyota in Murray. And right now, you could get a new Tacoma for $299 a month for 36 months. I mean, you could be one of those cool kids on the street with a brand new Tacoma. When you buy from Larry H. Miller, you're not just a customer, you're part of the family. And when you're part of the family, you can just go in and get service and they just take good care of you like you really are part of the family. Go see him in Murray, talk to our good friend Jeff, or check him out at larryhmillertoyota.com and send me a pic of your cool new Tacoma. And today, it's happening. We have a new coach for the Utah Grizzlies, John Becanic. John, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Jay, thanks for having me. Great to meet you. And again, excited to be part of the organization. And I believe is it the 30th year or 31st year, something like that. So it's exciting and obviously a beautiful area to be part of and exciting with the Mammoth, everything that's going on in Utah with hockey. So kind of fun to just ride that wave right now.
Yeah, it's been crazy. And our world got kind of shocked last year with the Mammoth coming into town, and everybody's worried about the Grizzlies, and we thought everything would stabilize. And obviously, we don't know now, but we know there's been a coaching change, and we're really excited. When I started looking into you, and like we were talking before we started recording, um, our paths have crossed, or our have similar people in them. You mentioned you used to be a firefighter, and now I'm in my 28th year with Unified Fire. It's cool to meet somebody else that shares the same two passions I share. Firefighting it's kind of a unique job. It's more than a job. It depends on your whole life, because your passion. And what got you into firefighting?
Well, you're right. It is a second family. I think until you have the privilege of being a firefighter, you don't really realize how it is your second family. And your spouses are families together, your kids are families together. It really is a unified thing. Well, in Canada, it is a unwritten rule that most firefighters are going to be some form of hockey players. And the philosophy of most communities in Canada, especially the smaller communities, is that they were part of a team and they were part of something, where our sport all throughout the world, but in Canada, a lot of humble, hardworking people. It's not a lot of privileged people to play our sport in Canada. It's something that's just I again obviously partial to hockey, but I do believe that some of the finest, kindest athletes are in our sport, and I think that translates into being a firefighter. And my wife Rhonda, who we've been together now 41 years. Her father was a firefighter, ended up being my captain, and again, it was. And I joke with people. It was when it was really fun to be a firefighter. I was a firefighter in those days where you got some good card tournaments going on. You had some good pool tournaments. It was kind of a fun day, and working the night shift was always fun. Obviously now the job has transitioned into a lot more first responders, and but that wasn't the case back in the day. The ambulance people did their thing, the firefighters did their thing, and it was a great job. I loved it, and it helped me transition. I really believe, Jay. I had no desire to be a captain or a platoon chief or anything at that time. I was a young punk that didn't really know much. I got on at 21, which at that time was the youngest, firefighter, and I left at 32. But I realize now how much being in that environment helped me be a better coach down the road. And now I look back, I'm like, man, I would have been probably a pretty good chief or a pretty good platoon chief with the experiences I've got from hockey, right? The leadership and the managing people, which is really at the level we're at with the Grizzlies. You're more managing people and personalities, and hopefully, the X and O stuff you've acquired and developed over 40 years of coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I use a lot of what I learned in hockey to help me in the fire department. And I use a lot of what I learned in the fire department to help me in hockey coaching and playing and everything. And just it's that how to get along with people, whether you like them or not, and how to manage stressful situations with a group of people and in whatever role you're in, leader or medic or whatever. So yeah, I find that there is a lot of, they do cross over quite a bit. Um, and I could talk firefighting all day, but my audience really wants to hear more. And So talk to me about when you had to decide to leave fire to become a coach, and you were in Sault Ste. Marie.
Yeah, it's funny. It was 1996, I guess, when I officially left. And at that time, I came to the States, believe it or not, and this is where people say my wife is a saint. I left my job for a 6-month TN visa because it was, people don't
Wow.
realize coming into the States from Canada is not the easiest thing, especially back then to work. And I ended up moving to Bismarck, North Dakota on a 6-month work visa. My wife went back to grad school to become a physical therapist. I had a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. So these players that we're dealing with the Grizzlies and some of the challenges they're starting to face, they've got significant others or consider. I've done the hard. I tell players, of the players I've spoken with, I am not smarter or better than you. I have just failed so much more than everybody else in the locker room. I just have a lot more experience. But my dad, who was a professional hockey coach, had said several times, like, son, I think you've got a special gift. You should consider it. And I said, Dad, nobody has ever quit the fire department in the history of our province. My wife will disown me. There's no way it's going to happen. And little bit by little bit, you get the bug. And back then, I joke with people when I coached the Sioux Grounds in '93. I got $500 a month, and I thought I was making bank. I thought I was standing on top of Mount Rainier and just excited. So, back then it wasn't a profession that a lot of ex-players were wanting to get. There was no money in it, right? So anybody that grew up in that generation of coaching truly coached just because that was what their passion was, not because there was some financial windfall. And get to meet people like yourself, Jay. Like, the thing about our sport is, you always hear everybody say, it's a small world, the hockey world, but it is truly such a small world. And when you get to our age or my age, where you've just been in it a long time, you meet a lot of people, you end up crossing over at times, right? And so, I got good advice from my dad that was, um, he said, son, there's three things in your life now. He said, there's your wife and your kids, there's your coaching career, and there's the boys. And he said, son, you can have two of the three things and be really successful at two of the three, but son, you can't be successful at all three. He says, if you choose the boys and you chose your coaching career, you're going to lose your family. He said,
Oh,
if you choose your family and the boys, you're going to get fired. He said, son, I'm leaving you option number three. Hopefully you're smart enough to take option number three. So just celebrated my 37th wedding anniversary, and this is my 40th year of coaching. So whether I've been successful or not, that's for the people like yourself or the media to determine. They have their version of success and my version of success, two totally different things. The fact that I'm on a podcast sitting here in Phoenix, Arizona with you, getting ready to start coaching the Grizzlies, I think that's the coolest thing about our sport.
yeah. Well, congratulations on the lengthy marriage. It doesn't happen that often anymore, I'll tell you. And I'm lucky. I married a saint as well, and I'm on my 31st year now as well. So,
Congrats. Yeah.
um, yeah. With Sioux City, did you coach Trevor Daly? Were you
Trevor
there with?
Daly came in shortly, well, not shortly, it would have been a few years after.
Okay.
The group that was there when my short stint with the 2 years with Steve Sullivan, who was assistant GM of the Coyotes, now the Mammoth, obviously. So Steve Sullivan, Drew Bannister. There's a lot of players that came from that team that ended up. Drew Bannister obviously was the head coach in St. Louis. There was a lot of players that ended up. We went to three straight Memorial Cups, winning the third one, that end up being coaches or GMs in the NHL. Obviously, I grew up. I'm a year younger than Ronnie Francis, so I grew up
Oh yeah.
with Ronnie, and my dad trained all the top hockey players in our hometown. Our house was converted to a gym. So back in the day, in the late '70s, early '80s, anybody, whether it was Rick Tocchet or Ronnie, anybody that came through the Sioux, Paul Maurice, we all trained together at our house. So Sault Ste. Marie is a anybody that's from there. Paulie's from there, obviously won back-to-back cups, and Ronnie's from there, and some older people like the Espositos and Lou Nanny. Sault Ste. Marie is really, has done a great job of putting out not just great hockey players, but some pretty good hockey coaches or people in hockey. And we're all very, very proud to tell people we're from the Sioux. It's not, there's never anybody from the Sioux. I see Ronnie Francis was calling Joe Thornton the other day to give him his, welcome to the Hockey Hall of Fame. And the first thing Ronnie said, we needed, now, not that Joe is from the Sioux, but he did play for the Grounds. We got to get another Sioux ground. So we all do shameless plugs on things like this because we are proud of our hometown. And like I said, a lot of great hockey people. I'm not one of them, but a lot of great hockey people have come from that area. And I'm just proud to be, in that circle of hockey people that have had the ability to make this a profession.
Well, it's amazing how many of those names that you mentioned also had ties in with Salt Lake too, whether it was, Maurice and Ronnie Francis with Salt Lake Golden Eagles. And then I was talking to Trevor Daly because I knew he was a Sioux, and then he also played here for the Grizzlies and got his
Yep.
shot from the NHL here. And then we have another name in common that I think had a lot of influence on my life. And I don't know if you know Jordan Parisi. He's a local here now, former North Dakota Fighting Sioux, and obviously JP's kid.
Yeah.
But there was a time in my life that I played for Kevin Constantine, and it was brief for me, but he really shaped my life. And then Jordan Parisi will say the same thing. Kevin Constantine kind of has a way of knocking some sense into you, taking out all the glam, and saying, "This is your path," or "You should be focused here," or just kind of bringing you down to reality. And then when I look, I'm doing research on you. I'm like, man, there's so many times our paths cross. So, tell me about your time with Kevin and what did you take from him? Because you guys coached it was at Everett
Well, we
together.
spent 6 years together. So
Wow.
Kevin brought me to Pittsburgh to coach the team, the Forge that ended up winning the national championship. And then we went to Everett together for the first 4 years. He left to go to Houston. I stayed on as the head coach. Kevin is arguably, and again, Kevin's gonna have his haters, just like we all have our haters. Kevin's got his haters that for his process. I will say this. I've been around a lot of hockey people, a lot. And he is in the top three smartest hockey people I've ever met. And I mean, I could have met number one, but I've not met everybody. So I'm going to say he's that smart. Kevin, I spent I think I'm the longest serving assistant ever that he has spent time with, right? And they
Wow.
call it the Constantine tree. And Kevin is being the top of the tree. And you'll hear this in the hockey world. Oh, he's part of the tree. And Troy Ward, Mike Eves, who had served with him, worked with him in
Yeah, Shattuck St. Mary's
Pittsburgh.
guys too. Yeah.
We're all kind of near the top of the tree. You got Luke Strand, who is now at Mankato, head coach at Mankato, part of the tree. Jay Verity, who was the Coyotes assistant coach, worked with Turk, and then now is with the Flyers. Jay was my assistant for 6 years. He is now with the Flyers with Talk. All of us are part of the tree. Anthony Bone, who's coaching Idaho Falls Spud Kings that we brought in there, he worked under me. He's part of the tree. So there is a lingo that we use. Our players in Utah will hear it this year from me that we've all kind of stayed consistent with. Um, Kevin teaches you to find ways to get better and to win. He is amazing at challenging you to find solutions. So a lot of what I am from a habits, details, um, teaching, developing came from Kevin. The second half, I'm going to give a lot of credit to gentlemen we're going to talk about at some point, Don Hay, my time with Don. I was very blessed when I was an assistant. It was under guys like Ted Nolan, under Don Hay, under Kevin Constantine. It was very calculated for me when I took those jobs that had nothing to do with money. I wanted to get better, right? And so um, I think Jay, in my older years, the wisdom that I've got the most is I know what I don't know and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with what I don't know, because we can't, showing some humility and saying, I need help here helps you become a better, whether it's a father, a husband, a coach, a firefighter, right? As we get older, our minds maybe don't think as broad as some younger people, so they give you some solutions. But Kevin would be the type to send you back to your assistant coach. Jay Barry and I were his assistants in Everett early, and he would send us to the office and don't come knock on my door till you guys figure this out. And we
Oh,
could spend
nice.
2 days in an office trying to figure it out on how to stop whatever it was, Ryan Nugent Hopkins on Red Deer's power play, whatever it was. Don't come back till you have an answer. And, he probably already knew the answer, but he wanted you to kind of come up with it so that, you grew in your mind. So Kevin's a brilliant hockey mind. You know, he was, like I said, super huge in my development, as was working with people like Ted Nolan and Sherry Basson and some of these people on how to manage players and how to be kind to players, how to get things out of players with kindness, but firmness is it's yeah, I'm excited about this year because I am a different coach and I think I'm significantly better coach than I was when I was a head coach in the Western Hockey League. I just think I'm more capable of processing each situation as it happens and having a patience to me. I think we as young people don't have as much patience, and
No.
so we tend to abuse our power by either whether it's belittling players or being overly, those days are come and gone. You have to learn how to process the information, take a deep breath, understand that the intent was probably not to give up a breakaway, but it happened. And
Yeah.
how do we move on from there? So, like I said, Kevin was really huge, and everybody I've been involved with in hockey, I can sit with John Ferguson of the Mammoth for an hour and hear him talk about something that they just dealt with, and it's valuable information, right? So you always want to go into these meetings where there's people a lot smarter than yourself and just be Ted Lasso, be inquisitive, right? Ask questions, try to understand things because at some point that knowledge is going to become useful to you and whatever, whether it's your hockey career or your personal life.
It's funny. I've had this discussion a lot lately, and with the whole Pete DeBoer thing, and we talked. I said the minute he benched, I was on the radio at the time, and the minute he pulled Ottinger, I said, "Oh, he's done. He's done." And then when he got in front of the media, and he said what he said about Ottinger, I said, "Oh no, he's definitely done because he's going to lose the room. This isn't the '70s. This isn't the '80s.
Uh,
I played for coaches that belittled me. As a goaltender, I remember playing at juniors, and I brought this up a couple times, but I started a game. I gave up two breakaway goals, and I got pulled. And my coach yelled at me and then said, "Are you ready to do this or what?" And then put me back in. And I'm like, I was so rattled. I don't think I was ready
yeah,
to play. But now you see the evolution, and it takes more patience. It takes more humility. Like you have to
yeah,
be humble to
yeah,
coach. I truly believe that.
yeah, yeah. You're 100% right, and at my age, you've raised two children. My daughters are professionals. They're both PAs and professionals, and you raise your kids and so many things in life prepare you to be a better coach, and some of them haven't happened yet for some of these young coaches. That's the problem. It hasn't happened yet, right? Um, but goalies are funny. When Pete did that, I love Pete, and Pete is a top 10 coach probably of all time. Um, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, Kevin told me a story about working with Lou Lamoriello when he was with the Devils, and he said, he's like, Coach, he said, Lou said to me, if you go an entire game and don't use a timeout, I'm going to fire you. The timeouts are, you can't tell me that in a 60-minute game, there's not a time, that there's not
Oh,
something that makes you go, you know what, let's take a pause here. He goes, so I was always like panicking, like, oh, there's only 10 minutes to go. I haven't used my timeout. But he said, you know, you're judged on your decisions, whether you make them or you don't make them. You don't pull the goalie. Ottinger gives up another one. They're like, Pete's going to get judged. Why did you leave him in there? Why didn't you make a goalie change? It's game 7, right? So, you have to have the confidence in your decision making
right.
and you can't look back. And is there better ways to handle it? I may have tried to get to the first period intermission, met with the coaching staff, asked if we feel like he looked like he was shaking other saves, and let's make the change so we don't embarrass him in front of 20,000 people. And I'm sure that'll happen this year with the Grizzlies, right? I am more of a guy that tries to wait to the intermission if we can, so that I don't embarrass him in front of the fans, in front of his teammates, in front of opposition. Right? I don't want opposition to get a leg up where they're like, oh, look at guys, like everybody's going to know that he's been pulled at the intermission, but it's not it's not doing the walk of shame
Not as abrupt.
across
Yeah.
the ice, right? So, and then the media at that point, I think Pete kind of knew. And quite honestly, I think Pete was fine with going. I think Pete's made his money. He's had a good
Yeah.
career. I've heard some stories about, the life that the quality of life that he has, and I think he lives in Vegas is home for him. And I think, I could see Pete being the type of guy that's a broadcaster at some point because
Oh,
he's a little bit like Paul Maurice. He's not short, John Tortorella. He's not short on words.
right.
He's going to say what, and quite honestly, we miss that a little bit, right? In hockey is, the color people that are just cliche answers, and you sometimes you want the bullet to the head, the Billy Bean bullet to the head, and just the honesty of what the situation entitles, right? So, as a head coach, you're always going to be judged. The fans are going to judge you. The media is going to judge you. Your players are going to judge you. Um, I just think if you make a mistake, own it, apologize for it, move on.
Yeah, 100%. That's that humility part, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny. I think now too, especially with the level goalies are at this point, especially like East Coast League goalies have gone through the same training as NHL goalies, and goalies know if they should be pulled, and they know if a goal's their fault. And even the most egotistical goalies I've known in my day, well, back like when I was playing, goalies blamed everybody else. But even the most egotistical goalies that I've played with since I was actually trying to be a player and just being an e-bug, they know when a goal's their fault and they know they should be pulled. So I think that takes a little bit of the sting out of it too. Because you'll see a goalie, sometimes he'll give up two or three and he'll just look to the bench and almost start coming for you.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
their confidence. Yeah, you can. I try to. If they give up a couple bad goals, that's one thing. If it looks like the saves are hard for them to make, that's what starts to get me concerned. Where they make a save a lot harder than it has to be, and it looks like they're fighting to make the save. And it's great that they're trying to fight through it, but in my history, it doesn't reverse. It's no different than. We got the Open starting tomorrow. It's no different than Rory McIlroy getting on the first tee and he starts spreading it all over the course. You're like, it's not going to be. It doesn't matter how much they go to the driving range when they don't have it. And it's the same. The difference between goalies and skaters. And I've talked to I've been on the phone with most of the guys that we've signed and are returning, and I talk about my philosophy and having them contribute minutes to the team. How can you contribute minutes? Because if you're, let's say, you're Lebster or whatever, and you're a skilled offensive player, and it's just not happening, the puck is not your friend that night. That's 3% of the game that you're not doing well. But there's another 97% that you can help our team. And so you
right.
can give us minutes in different ways. Goalies don't have that luxury. their thing is either they stop the puck or they don't and they hurt the team, right? So there's no other, hey, contribute on breakouts. Well, no, that's not what you're in there for, is passing the puck, right? So, and, we signed Dryden McKay. Dryden played juniors for me, believe it or not. So when Eric asked if I would take the job, I said, first thing I said, we gave up a ridiculous amount of goals last year. I said, that can't happen again. We've got to build from the net out. Dryden, I know, I trust. Dryden's won the Hobie Baker. He broke just about all of Marty Turco's records, which people said would never happen.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yes, he's an undersized goalie, but the way that I believe and how we will teach our team to defend, our goalie just doesn't have to allow pucks to go through him. If he can stop pucks from going through him, we're going to cut that. My goal is to be under 200, so we're trying to knock off 100 goals against this year. Um,
Wow.
um, the teams that I've been involved with, we've never been worse than the top five in goals against in the league. So I'm hoping over the course of my career that stays the same here. But again, we'll find out. But that is, we had more than enough talent to win games last year. We just couldn't defend collectively as a group. And then I think sometimes, what we had in net, and I say we, obviously it wasn't my team, but the group that they had in net, it's kind of an anomaly when you see was it the Shield kid was 12-2-1 and with the Eagles, but was like his numbers were just awful with us. So I'm like something. So again, goalie, goalies, quarterbacks, starting pitchers, they're all the same. Anybody that says one player can't win a game for you is a liar in our sport because one player can win a game for you.
Well, I had a lot of other things I wanted to get to, but I kind of want to dig into this a little bit now too, because um, I watched that team last year get built. I watched the team the year before get built, and then I get to do some of the practices, and I know that was probably the first thing on your mind when you got the coaching job is what were you going to do about an e-bug. So just but I do come to a lot of practices when guys get pulled up, but I'll go to that locker room and I'll sit in that locker room for a minute and I'll be like, hey, I was here yesterday, and three guys that were here yesterday are now up in the A. And then I'll come home and I'll watch because I'm a total hockey geek, and I'll pull up the Eagles game and I'll watch it. And those guys aren't playing. It's not like they're just fourth line minutes; they're sitting in the stands. Our agreement the Grizzlies agreement with the Avalanche, the first couple years was phenomenal. And I know the Avalanche had a GM switch, and it seemed like it kind of switched the way things were going here. It seemed like guys like they just didn't care if the Grizzlies won or lost. And I know a lot of times that's true. They're just here for development, and I preach that to the fan base. But are you prepared for that? What if your boy Dryden comes in and the Eagles say, "Hey, yeah, he's won 3 games in a row. We want him up here." I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, here's the thing. Um, I'm gonna be careful how I talk about this.
and you could say you don't even have to
No,
answer
it's
that
here's the
question.
thing is the American League team owes us nothing other than what's been agreed upon, which is providing players.
Yep.
At the end of the day, they do not own the Grizzlies. I am not an employee of the Eagles or the Avalanche. Um, so you need when the job was offered to me, and I said, first couple times I'd said no. And I was talked to some agents, talked to some coaches, NHL coaches, just am I nuts for doing this? Like I'm only going there to now I'll be honest, Jay, like I am leaving my wife of 36 years here in Phoenix. My daughter and son-in-law live here as well, and they're expecting my first grandchild in January. I am not leaving all of this to go to Utah to have a kick around. I
Right.
am going with the intention of winning a Kelly Cup. Like that, I was not hired for anything else other than that. I'm sure every coach starts the year thinking that.
Yeah.
I am not trying to parlay this into a job with the Eagles or the Avalanche. My job is to be committed to the fans and the organization, and more importantly, the players. So, with regards to players going up and down, my philosophy with Eric and our coaching staff has been this: let's surround ourselves with as many good players that are on one ways, that are not on two-way contracts with the Eagles where they can go up and down. And those are the players we're loyal to, because that is going to be the guys that are going to be with us year round. And we are going to develop our culture, our habits, and our details so that regardless of who comes in or out, and I've met with Kevin McFarland from the Avalanche, and I've met with John Ferguson from the Mammoth, and I've made it clear that I wanted to know what their expectations would be from me from a development perspective, right? Not ice time. Ice time to me is nobody's going to peer pressure me into play. I'm too old and stubborn to not play the players that deserve to play. Now, if that's the players that came down, God bless them. But if it isn't, and so we're going to make sure that that core of forwards and the core of D, we've signed 5D that are all on one wave. We've signed most of our forwards, core guys like Mesner and Lefster, like guys that were critical pieces to the puzzle. And make sure that how they play is how we play. When guys come up and down, you're either going to fit in or you're not going to play. But we cannot turn and change how we are or who we are based on the players we have. No, this is how we're going to play. And whether your coach in Colorado or Tucson played a different way, I don't really care. This is how we're going to play. And if you're not going to play that way, your ice time will dictate that. So, that probably sounds a little bit abrasive, but we owe it to the players that have signed to play for the Utah Grizzlies. We owe it to people like yourself that have supported this team and this franchise for all these years. And that is going to be when people talk about culture, our culture I'm a family person. And if you saw the press conference, I compare a team to an orchestra, right? Everybody's an instrument. I do not play an instrument. I'm the least talented person in the room. I'm the least important person. I'm just the maestro with the baton trying to organize the music. And whether you're the triangle player or the cowbell player that is really what most people would think insignificant to the sound that comes out, you pull those instruments out, the music doesn't sound the same, right? Everybody sees the violinist, everybody sees the cello player. And so everybody has to contribute something. And whatever that is, I want them to be the very best at it in the league. And if you can, then everybody has a sense of self-worth, right? This generation of athletes, people in general, they're so fragile. Their confidence is so fragile. So we got to make sure there's a way that they can continue to build their confidence, Jay. And when you're getting sent, when you get called up and now you're sitting there for a month in the stands, I don't care whether you're getting a bigger paycheck or not, your confidence goes into the toilet, right? Then
100%. Yeah.
after you sit there for a month, your reward for sitting there for a month is now you're getting sent back to the East Coast League and you're going to make less money. And so now you've got a guy's head that's he's in his own head, right? It's
Right.
just the way it is. So, we want when that player comes back to feel loved, to feel wanted, to feel value, and to feel like he's got to be part of something and not do something over and above what he's supposed to do to get back to Colorado or Tucson, but do something special that helps the Grizzlies win. That's on me. That's my job, right? Is that managing of that player. Um, and
Are you allowed to tell us the amount of players that you're getting from Colorado and the amount of players that you're getting from Utah?
well, there's always like almost like a sliding scale. And I will tell you this. One of the stipulations when I took on this role was I really didn't want to handle the business side of it at all.
Oh wow.
Right? And because I personally feel it's a conflict of interest
Okay.
on my part, right? Imagine talking to a player and you've got him in your office and you're trying to tell him you want him to block shots, you want him to do this, you want him to do that. And then he's like, hey, coach, I'd like to make this much. And you're like, well, no, I don't think you're worth that much. And then all of a sudden the player's like, well, you just asked me to do this, this, and this, but then you're saying I'm not worth. So I think it's a conflict of interest. I know that that's typically how the East Coast League
Yeah,
operates.
the East Coast coach usually is the coach, GM, travel agent.
Eric Hudson is an amazing human being, first and foremost. He is the most driven guy when it comes to anything, like how he operates the Mountain America Center in Idaho Falls. But what he built with the Idaho Falls Spud Kings is an anomaly in North American junior hockey. It is the most financially successful tier two junior hockey franchise in the history of junior hockey. It is
Wow.
that successful. And I'm talking from a business perspective. Obviously, we won the national championship last year and year two. So it's been, but how he has approached the Grizzlies and his commitment and dedication, God bless him, because Eric's got two young daughters. He's a younger man, obviously married, and he is on the phone every day. And I mean every day. And I joke with people, if Connor McDavid doesn't sign with the Oilers, Eric Hudson's going to call Connor McDavid and say, hey, I know you've got other options, but you know what? We got a spot. Like that's Eric, right? Eric is just driven. And so Eric has given me, and what I love about what's going to happen this year is Eric's given me, John, just coach the team. Coach, do what you do best. I am not a money guy. I'm not a numbers guy. I'm not a balanced budget guy. So again, getting back to what I said, know what I don't know. Why would I deal with that? Bringing someone like Jack Skilly on, all
Oh,
right, to
that's
work.
huge. Yeah.
I am not a skill development guy. Never have been. But these guys all they love that individual attention. So I said, Eric, we got to make sure that these guys are feeling like their game is getting better individually. And then Jack was part of it. So having Jack come on was huge. And then Ryan Anderson, who I've known for a lot of years, former military person he's a Navy guy, very detailed, very task oriented. He understands the salary cap stuff. He understands the league. So I just love the staff that we have, Jay, because everybody's got a strength, you know, and we've all got B games and we're all going to help, with our B games in certain areas. But man, do we ever have I think everything covered. And my philosophy with Eric was, Eric, let's make sure the players have no excuse for the lack of their performance other than it's on themselves. Let's eliminate any peripheral issues, right? Travel, coaching, development, that's removed. All right. All they got to do is go play and have fun. So create a fun environment where they're going to come to work. And last I checked, winning is fun and losing is not fun, right? So that's got to change, but hopefully that's a byproduct of the people that we've assembled and collected, and um, empower the players to to rudder the ship, and make sure they each understand that they will not get their personal or professional goals without everybody else in the locker room. And so they all need to be able to rely on each other, myself included, to us to have what might be perceived as success.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you're right. Every coach does come in and say they're going to win whatever championship. Every coach I've ever interviewed, but I see your pedigree. You've done it in the past, and so I'm going to believe you on what you're saying. I'm going to take you because it's not just your word; it's your book of work that I looked up. When I first heard your name coming in, and I knew your name. Um, and I know we crossed paths somewhere in the past, but
Yeah,
it's
it's winning is, again, no matter what, winning starts from your end out. I don't care what anybody says. The reason Florida is so successful is they've got very talented players, yes. I mean, I think they scored the most goals in the Stanley Cup playoffs since 1991. But they defend so hard, and they defend as a group, so they're connected. They've got good goaltending. And no matter what, the other team is going to have the puck on their stick. So if you cannot defend and get it back, you're swimming upstream. You're chasing the game all the time. So there's a way to defend, and again, you can Google. I mean, I'm sure you've already done. I've done presentations on things and spoken at the NHL coaches convention, and you know, there's a right way to defend and there's the wrong way to. It's very simple.
yeah,
Um, and there's three things critical to not giving up a lot of goals. And if you can be really like even a B plus at all three things, you're going to be less than 2.7 goals a game. First is can't give up odd man attacks, right? You can't give up 2-on-1s, can't give up breakaways, can't give, and I don't consider a 3-on-2 an odd man attack, but even though it is an odd man attack. And the biggest reason you give up odd man attacks is people try to defend going forward, meaning they go at the puck, someone goes around them and gives up an odd man attack, as opposed to being gapped on them or absorbing. So you can't give up odd man attacks. You can't give up Royal Road passes. All right. There was a study, Steve, whatever his name is, did on Henrik Lundqvist back when he was with the Rangers. And Henrik Lundqvist's save percentage on every shot that didn't cross the Royal Road, that didn't cross that, for the people that are listening, the Royal Road's an imaginary line from the middle of our net to the blue line, right? So that's what's called the Royal Road. You know what it is, but for the people that don't know what it is, I want to identify it. His save percentage on every shot that didn't cross the Royal Road was 967 over the course of his career. On all shots that crossed the Royal Road, it was 630 something.
oh,
Now, Hall of Fame goalie, right? 30% it drops. Like that's a massive amount. So you will probably hear me from the stands, from the media box yelling sticks. There's not much I yell during the game, but I yell sticks. And what I mean sticks is your stick better be on the ice with one hand or I'm going to lose my crap with it, because that's how you don't give up Royal Road passes. And then the last thing is you can't be in the penalty box, right? You can't kill.
right.
Today's power plays are just so good. Players are so talented. You do that, we're going to be around 2.2, 2.4. And, we got to score 3 goals a game to win. And this is a Don Hay thing too. Because they had, when we were there, was Craig Cunningham, who obviously had lost his leg, played for Tucson in the American League. He had basically some type of heart issue. Remember, at a face-off. Brendan Gallagher, obviously at the end of his career now with Montreal, and Evander Kane. They were all 16-year-old rookies playing for the Vancouver Giants, and I was the head coach in Everett. And we would play, and Hazer would just play the crap out of them. And it shocked me that he had so much confidence playing these 16-year-olds, eh? And the next year I go, They had Lucic. They were a pretty good team. And so the next year I go um, coach, and our best player was Jordan Martinook. We had Brett Quill. We had a handful of good players. And I said, Hazer, how did you have the confidence to play those guys that much? He's like, Johnny, we knew we were hosting the Memorial Cup. I didn't care if we gave up goals. I didn't care if they failed. He goes, but by the time we got to the Memorial Cup, they had so many scars and scabs and wounds because they've been through it, right? They got to the Memorial Cup, they'd already done their failure part. So, you know, being able to get through certain things early is critical for us, right? And learning to win 2-1 games. I mean, our team last year did not have one shutout, and there was 4 games that we gave up 1 goal and 7 games that we gave up 2 goals. So 11 games out of 72, we gave up 2 or less, right? Like that's not, you can't win that way. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody's going to win that way, right? Paul Maurice last year, not the past year, but 2 years ago, their first cup, when they finally got to game 7, like, guys, we can't win these 6-5 games against Oilers. And they ended up winning, I think it was 2-1 or whatever it was, game 7. Like you can't win those. And what you want to do is when the real bullets fly in the playoffs, you want to be able to say to the guys in the locker room, guys, we're used to playing this way all year. These guys aren't. They've not had to play this way. This is normal for us. And they're like, yeah, coach, this is normal for us. So when the game's a nail biter and it's 1-1 going into the third, our guys like, we've played in 30 of these, right? Not that you don't want to score more, but you got to get comfortable playing in those games because I don't know if anybody's comfortable playing in the 6-5 games. You're just like hoping you're the last team to score type thing. That's not a recipe for and I don't even know if it's exciting for the fans because if you're on the wrong side of that, I don't think anybody goes, oh, you know what? But we scored 6 goals. That was cool. But we lost 7. People still go home upset, right? Again, we've got such good forwards and guys that can score. You know, they need to do their job. And you know, when they don't have the puck, they need to do their job. That's all.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And it's funny because it is a lot of that research you're talking about. I don't know if you remember, there was a time when Kevin Constantine was the one that went back and he watched every goal scored in the NHL, and then he came up. And I never heard it called the railroad before. To me, I thought he always said like the Trans Canada Highway. You couldn't go across there. Um, but I guess the other question I want to ask, I know we're kind of maybe running a little bit long, is you stepped away, you were in development, um, you were doing some of the
Hockey IQ.
prospect
Yeah.
hockey IQ stuff, and I thought, was Brad May helping you? That's not the official question. Was Brad May involved with any of that? Because I know he was doing something like that. The prospect.
We had no. So when I got away from coaching as a full-time bench coach, you know, I wanted to try and market what I do well, which is teach hockey IQ. So I
Mhm.
built a company called Pyramid Hockey. Twitter was just starting to get really big, and I kind of blew up on Twitter. I kind of became a big thing on Twitter, right? And next thing you know, I'm lecturing at all and doing podcasts. And but what it did, Jay, was I learned the game offensively in a whole different way because there was no wins and losses to it. I wasn't worried about whether I was going to win the game. And so I was like, I kind of ruined a lot of people's careers. If I could ever go back and do it over again, I would do it this way. I had never in a million years thought I was going to coach again. Eric Hudson calls me January 2024. I hear you're a guy that can come in and fix things. And I said, Eric, my wife will divorce me if I ever go back coaching. And I never knew I never heard of Idaho Falls. And he says, I said, no, I think 4 times. And it was just persistent. It's just typical Eric. I said, Eric, it's not money. I've got a pretty good life. I work from home for a company in Minnesota doing hockey IQ. What I've done, Jay, is I built a universal hockey IQ virtual program that is now being used throughout the state of Minnesota. And our
Okay.
guys will be using it to work with our guys. And so, yeah, I went back to school. I went back to school. That's what I tell people. I went back to school and learned again because I needed to change some of the ways how I think the game should be played. Because Kevin and I did have a very narrow-minded way. And then I just again, you can never be too proud to go, I got to get better. And I never knew this chance was going to happen, right? So I am like a kid in a candy store. I joke with all the players on the phone. I go, I don't do coffee. I don't do Red Bull. I am just this wired every day. Like I
Oh,
love the
wow.
game so much. And I want the players to feel that. I want the players to feel excited to come to the rink every day because they're going to learn something new and it's going to be fun. And then, when they get to go to work, when they actually step on the ice there at the Maverick Center and it's game time, go have fun. My job's done. My job's done. Like go do what you do well. Um, I'll be there to help steer you when you get a little bit off track. But yeah, I mean, I think the break did me the world of good.
I'm sure it did, and I'm sure it recharged your batteries. And that's kind of the same. You know, I enjoyed being a paramedic, and then I knew it was time to be a captain. And as soon as I became a captain, I'm like, I thought I knew everything, and I thought I always judged my captains. And then I'm like, man, I got to be humble. I got to start over, and I got to learn everything.
Yeah.
And learning everything, I think, helped me a lot. But what I really wonder about is for most East Coast coaches, they rely on the fact that they've been coaching, they've been involved to find other players. Like, did you still have that network?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm old, right? So you know a lot more people.
Oh, yeah.
It's Here's the thing about players. Everybody thinks there's another shiny new nickel somewhere, right? And I don't think the players we had last year, like I met with each and every one of them. Where would you put our talent level? Where would you do this? What were the issues? Like, what can I fix? What can I help with? Um, I don't mind having guys that have been there. I want everybody to have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. And yes, you need some young guys just based on salary cap, right? There's certain financial things that you can only have so many veteran players because there's only so much money each week that can go out.
Right.
Um, but but if you talk to an agent, everybody should be in the American League, right?
Right.
So everybody's too good for your league. And that's their job. I'm like, well, if they were too good, you wouldn't be having a phone conversation with me. So let's pump the brakes a bit and let's just kind of, but I am looking for specific players that play a certain way that, like, some of the kids that I call them kids, young men that we sign. I love it when they say, Coach, I just want to win and I want to get better. I'll take 25 of those guys any day of the week because um, when the first thing out of their mouth is money, and that's typically what an agent is when you're dealing with as an agent is money. Okay. The range is pretty narrow. We're not talking
Right.
NHL where you're talking 850 league minimum 12 million, right? We're not talking that range. So you're talking 100, $150, give or take, plus minus, right?
Right.
But if a guy does not want to get better and does not want to play at the next level, I'm not the right coach for them. I'm just not.
Yeah. That makes
Like,
sense.
and no use. Let's cross that bridge now, Jay, so that we're not trading you, cutting you 3 months in because it's not the right mix. I don't want to see 60 people on our roster at the end of the year. I just don't know how you can win a champion. I get that there's going to be some guys moving up and down, but even if that, let's say that was 8 guys, right? You have a 24-man roster, and you have 8 guys that go up and down. The most you should have is 32. 35 would be an extreme. You start seeing 60. Like you're just taking shots in the dark. I'd sooner, let's just say the player's a fourth line guy. On our team, he's a fourth line guy. So on a scale of 1 to 10, he's a 6. And the guy you're going to bring in is a 6.5. Is it really worthwhile? And then if the guy's an 8, is he going to really be happy playing on the fourth line? How do you manage a guy that's playing the fourth line that's an 8? Because he's not going to be happy. So you find guys that are really good in what they do and can give you minutes. Because at the end of the day, the game is about minute eaters and the guys that can eat minutes in situations. And you, again, you're playing 3-3. So you can't play guys 27 minutes the first night. I don't understand the philosophy behind guys like, well, I'm just going to play, and then by third night we're just going to sit and we're going to trap. Okay, you know what? We're going to manage our ice time better. We're going to make sure that we go hard and we pressure hard with all 6D are going to kill penalties. We're going to have a collective group of guys. We're going to rotate guys 5-on-5 as much as we can. So when the third night comes, we got all kinds of energy. I think there's more free points, Jay, on the third night that are just kind of discarded because guys are like, well, we're tired. Let's just see if we can get it to overtime or whatever and go home. No, no. We're going to try and win every third game. That's where we got to try and win. Like the first game, and I got to think, I know when I got to Idaho Falls, I could not get over the altitude. I was like, oh my gosh. I went up a flight of stairs and I said to my wife, I go, I don't know if it's just me. I go, I can barely breathe here. And then I was seeing the players, the new players were coming in. I'm like, and you're seeing it take a week. So I'm thinking, when like Kalamazoo or someone comes out to Salt Lake City, it's got to be tough on them. Altitude wise, it's
Yep.
got to be tough on them. We got to make those guys work for 3 straight nights. Like we
Yep.
cannot make the game easy for them, right? Like let's make their lungs collapse on the ice. So I just think I think we have advantages that we haven't even taken advantage of personally with the altitude and with the travel, you know? So again, I don't know, you've been in the area, you're used to it, but you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I see it all the time. Yeah, I see, and I watched it with Dev Camp with the Mammoth.
Yeah.
Each one of those players came in. These are high performance athletes at the peak, and they came in and they were gassed.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
Do you
so
see it, Jay, at all? Like, do you see the visiting teams? Have you seen it over the course of
yeah,
watching the Grizzlies? Like,
yeah, we absolutely have, and it's
eh,
something it does play into our advantage for sure.
yeah, for sure. I
Um,
think so.
yeah, it's good. Well, I gotta tell you, John, I'm really excited about this season. The Grizzlies mean a lot to me. I've been, honored to be a part of it for so long, and um, change is always scary, and I'm excited to see what happens here. And I'd love to see a bunch of wins, and I'd love to see you win a championship in your first year here. So I wish you nothing but the best, and I want to thank you for taking time to be on the show.
But I appreciate it, Jay. Like I said, it's people like yourself and people that have been there for decades, right? That we want to make it special for everybody and yourself and those people included because that's what's allowed the team. And there's been some great coaches that have come through or gosh, some big name hockey people and some players back when it was an American League affiliate, I think for Dallas, I believe
Yeah.
back then, like I said. So there's a lot of history there and obviously even dating back to the Olympics being in that facility. I got the tour and saw the locker room, the US locker room or the Canadian locker room and there's a lot there, and so I'm going to try and enjoy every day of it and make as many memories as possible for myself, for people like yourself, and for the players and the rest of the fan base.
Well, that's outstanding, and you're gonna have a lot of support. The Grizzlies have a really good fan base, and yeah, it's gonna be a fun year. I'm excited for it. And it was really nice to get to meet you.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it.
And that is the Utah Puck Report.